And we are live. Welcome back to Aussies Taking Over the NBA. It is Thursday night. On the eve of the season, it's creeping up pretty quick.
Oh, we're not far away at all, which is nice. It's a bit of a change of pace. I still don't know how they're going to get this season started, but anyway, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens tonight. We got a Philly season review / outlook. Comes at a pretty good time because we kind of left this one right to the end. I subconsciously was sort of thinking, I want to see what they do with the Brett Brown thing, see what the firing is. They just snapped up Daryl Morey. It's like, nice little pickup of Daryl Morey there, rebuild the franchise, and yeah, we'll go through, we'll break down some of the last season, and then we'll talk about what their future and their outlook looks like. I think much rosier now. With I was pretty low on the Doc Rivers hiring. I was like, not sure about this. But then with Daryl Morey, I'm like, okay, this is, you got a 6-year window. You got a 6-year outlook here with Daryl Morey. I think if he stays there in that Philly post, I think he can definitely, like, he's somebody who will actually do some wheeling and dealing as opposed to.
He's kind of has done already. I mean.
Oh yeah. But I mean, over the long, like the mid long term, he's not a guy who's like, the first year you fucked up, now you're fired, and like it's not going to bring unrest. I think it'll bring some stability to the Philly front office and their organizational structure. Whereas I thought after Brown was fired, just to spoiler what we're going to talk about later, but after Brown was fired, I was a little bit, oh shit, like what's going to happen? Like this could be a little bit of turmoil. Things could unravel. After Colangelo, a couple of years ago, and then Brown stepping into the GM role, and then him getting fired. Like it was looking like a bit of a situation where there was possibly could have gone either way. But as always, like, share, and subscribe on Spotify. We're on Twitter, YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, SoundCloud. Anyway, you get your podcasts. Look up Aussies Taking Over the NBA. We're going to get back into doing filming for card content and stuff like that on the eve of the season. We'll probably do a little bit of draft stuff. The videos will come. They stopped for a couple of weeks. I got a bit sick, and then we just haven't had time to do it. Christmas is on our doorstep as well, which makes things pretty hard. But yeah, out there, if you like, share, and subscribe. Also on iTunes, give us a rating and review as well. 5-star if you can, because you love us and you want to get us out there and you want us more eyes on us. That'd be great. And yeah, Philly. Oversized lapel mic here.
Yeah, well, we did that cold call on 7-foot team, and Philly, I think we're closely aiming for it.
yeah, they went into orbit. That was nuts. Their team last year was absolutely crazy.
I think Josh Richardson was the smallest player at 6'6", outside of Realm there too, 6'1", but the smallest starter at 6'6". Look, we were big hype. We were like, oh yeah, this team could do well. Obviously, coming off the Jimmy Butler experience, getting Josh Richardson out of that sign and trade. Horford, we all thought was a good pickup, and then the season started, and it was just terrible. And I think in hindsight, you look at the coaching style of Brett Brown, and it didn't suit the size of that team. I think that's the biggest issue. Is he was stuck with Horford. He kind of went down with the ship with Horford, and I rate Horford as a player, and I still do. I just think he's probably a franchise center, as opposed to Joel Embiid's backup, and he's not a power forward at all. I think we made that abundantly clear. And Tobias Harris really isn't a great power forward either. He's kind of like that 3-4 combo guard that should really be trailing, shooting, and he just put the ball on the floor way too much. I mean, the ball on the floor is for Simmons and Embiid only in this team. Everyone else has just got to shoot, and that's really where the issue was last year, is that every single person needed to put the ball on the floor in order to create chances. That was why Josh Richardson was obviously shipped off to the Mavs for Seth Curry. But last season was disappointing, to say the least. I mean, they had an immaculate home record. It was just unreal watching them play at home. They absolutely trounced the Lakers, trounced everyone at home, and then they'd go on the road and were just terrible.
Did they have the best record at home?
Yeah, I think they only lost one game the whole season.
Good home crowd too. Yeah.
Well, that's the problem, right? It's always a home team, right? So that I said this pre-bubble, is that they were never going to make it past the first round of the bubble, because they're just not an away playing team. They need their home crowd. They don't play well. Joel Embiid's very much a hype player. As soon as something goes wrong and there isn't like a crowd there yelling at him to get his head back up, he just kind of just falls over. And we saw him really too big, and the way Brett Brown was playing him kind of post to post, it just didn't work. And I think that's where the season fell down, is that overutilization of Embiid, lack of a finishing player, Horford not really fitting with the team, Simmons getting injured first back, and then obviously the knee in the bubble. And who knows? Maybe they would have taken that first round a bit further with Simmons in the team, but it kind of finished on the note that I would have, and that was a first round exit and a firing of Brett Brown, which we all thought was coming. But they also made some really strange moves that season as well. I think, waiving Jonah Bolden and signing Norvell Pell to like a contract, and then just like waiving him now. And then that was just weird. And it's just like, yeah, it's obviously definitely not Daryl Morey's style. He's more of a traditional center. And I think Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers just want people that can shoot. And so it was kind of just a weird just blow up of the franchise over the off season, but it needed to happen. I think. I liked all the players last year. I think they brought some good guys through, but I think the process faltered, and now it's they're mid-level team adding the right pieces in. But I completely agree with Morey. You got to build around Simmons and Embiid. You look at their first season together with mediocre players, good players, like interesting, fun players to watch, but mediocre players, and they were plus 15 on the floor together. So it's just like, this is where they need to get back to. They need to get guys that can space the floor, which they didn't have at all last year. I think Seth Curry and Danny Green are really good pickups. I mean, I don't know how you got Danny Green for Al Horford. It's just what is Danny Green's got 1 year left on a $15 million contract. Like, how did he do that?
Yeah, he's a magician. He's a bit of a wizard.
How did he do that? Like, Horford's got another 3 years. And, you know, for a first round and a couple of second rounders, it's just like, you know, OKC obviously just hoarding and, you know, bit of the opportunity to get out. I mean, Al Horford's a good pickup, I think, in that very much that situation. It's a rebuilding franchise. But, yeah, it was just that's wizardry. I think how he didn't trade Matisse Thybulle off season is wizardry. Because I think everyone would have wanted Matisse Thybulle. If he develops any kind of offensive game, that kid is going to be an absolute superstar and wizard. You know, a bit of a coming out of Shake Milton last year as well. Some really big games against the Clippers. You know, dropping 30 plus. So there's some nice little pieces, you know, to look forward to this year. But it's nice to see that they kind of just got everyone out of the way. I was surprised they kept Harris. But again, I think it's kind of the worst contract in the league in terms of, you know, where pieces were moving this offseason. So how do you move him? You'd have to move him and Thybulle for someone. But, you know, if they play Harris in the right way instead of this dominant ball handler and just being that off-ball kind of shooting combo guard, then there could be some good out of it. But
it's not. He's not the worst. Like for what he gives you. I mean, his contract
20 points a game.
Is bad, but he's not like he's not an absolute zero, an absolute minus to throw out there and just be like, oh, man, what could we do with this guy? Plus, he's got experience with Doc Rivers as well, and Doc Rivers has coached him at the Clippers and gotten somewhat of a decent showing out of him. I still feel like what he gives doesn't fit in with Simmons and Embiid.
I think he has to change his game to fit them. I think last year, Brett Brown kind of wanted everyone to play their own game, and it just didn't work, right? You know, how many times you'd see pass, put the ball on the floor, drive, pass, put the ball on the floor, drive, and you're like, no, just shoot. You know, this is a team where if you get stuck and bogged down in the play and you're using the shot clock, the longer that shot clock goes with Philly, the less likely that they are to score. You know, you've either got to go a million miles an hour with Simmons, or you got to get out of Embiid's way for the post-up. And that's really where this team needs to go this year. And, you know, Doc's come in and said he's going to play a lot of Simmons and Embiid pick and roll, and I think that's really intelligent, man. They're big guys, and Simmons can get downhill in a heartbeat. So, you know, I'd like to see Simmons' game pick up from a free throw perspective. It was a little bit better this year, you know, only minutely. But again, you know, I like Doc saying, you know, there's no pressure to shoot. I know what you do. You're a court visionary. You know, no one put pressure on Magic to shoot. They just let Magic be Magic, and you got to let Simmons be Simmons, and you got to put shooters around him. Yeah, and I think Morey realizes that, and so does Embiid. You know, I think these two will develop that relationship. I think there was a lot of shit that got in the way in their round. I think, you know, Jimmy Butler was part of that, and a couple of other guys were part of that. But just clear the floor, no more superstars. Those two are the future, and surround them with shooters. And hey, sign Ryan Broekhoff as well to a non-guaranteed deal. So that's nice to hear. Hopefully he can turn that into a contract. Yeah,
another Aussie to watch. Hopefully he gets more than the kind of role that he had at Dallas, which was like, a couple of minutes here and there, you know.
He's on in Exhibit 10, so he's got a training deal camp with potential. Okay, yeah. So it's a partially guaranteed. I think he can play guaranteed. Yeah, I think you can play through to January 10 before they have to guarantee it. But looking at that contract, he's probably fighting Justin Anderson for that spot. And Justin Anderson's not a bad player. I think he's just had a bad run in the league. I've seen him, obviously, in his first stint at the Sixers and watched a lot of him play.
Is that the same Anderson? Cuddly Bear?
Yeah, Simba.
Yeah.
He looks like a teddy bear.
Yeah, it was. I think I had a good one. I can't remember what it was.
He looks like Simba. That's what they call him, Simba.
It's like a teddy bear or something like that. Yeah. So obviously Morey is a hot button issue. We'll get back to like the Philly season, but I think Daryl Morey is a hot button issue for Philly. I think that hire, you know, it came out of nowhere. It sort of came as a bit of a surprise, you know, him leaving the Rockets, sort of saying, "Oh, you know, I want to stay at the Rockets," and then he's just leaving out of nowhere and ending up at Philly. I think that's probably the best hire they could have made in terms of the GM spot to an outgoing GM coach, Brett Brown, which, you know, they really could have had like a suck zone style issue where it just sucked the guts out of what was happening at that franchise. But they got Morey and Doc in like straight away, and it was just like bam, bam, and it's like, oh, okay, now that's two really high pedigree hires. And I think Morey is probably the best hire they could have made in terms of stability, because he's a guy who can wheel and deal. He knows his way around the market. He's got good rapport with other teams around the league. He's got the wizardry to make these sort of little things happen. He's got a vision. He's going to take the franchise forward in a way that's not going to leave fans or like people who analyze Philly just going like, what? Like, what moves are you doing here? Like, I felt Elton Brand was a little bit like, what are we doing here? Like, what is this? Like, where are we taking this? This doesn't make sense. And once that kind of starts to build, you get a little bit like, shit, like there's a bit of friction between the players, and then, you know, things get blown out of proportion. I think the Simmons Embiid relationship stuff was getting a little bit overblown, and I feel like Morey's going to come in and just like put a stop to a lot of that by just being like, yeah, you do this, and this is how it all works. So
yeah,
with the Doc hire, was it Doc first before Morey? I can't remember.
It was Doc first, because remember the whole like D'Antoni situation where they're just like,
I still thought that might have been a better hire. Matt, it would have been sick, D'Antoni and Morey back at reunited at Philly. But still, I'm not high on Doc Rivers. But at the same time, I think it was a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction to that Clippers meltdown, as well as, you know, some thought around, I don't think he's a new wave coach. That I kind of feel like Philly, as an outsider, I kind of feel like Philly needs we need to revolutionize what this team is doing in terms of Simmons and Embiid. It's not necessarily we need to do new wave things. Like I felt like Ben Simmons and Embiid needed to freshen up. You know what I mean? Like it's those two guys. You guys need a fresh batch of ideas here to get something out of you guys.
Fresh batch of ideas and some fresh faces in the team. I think there was a bit of a toxic relationship between a lot of the other guys, and some guys needed to probably be put in their place, and, you know, some bench depth would have been nice. And
Doc Rivers is he's a relationship manager style coach. Like, he's not X's and O's. He's not like a tactical wizard, but at the same time, like, he's a good relationships guy and a good like rapport guy with people. Like, he's known widely around the league to be, you know, one of the most revered kind of coaches. So I think that, like, at first I was a bit knee-jerk, just like, oh, I'm not big on this Doc Rivers thing. But now, like, I've had time to process it. I'm kind of like, that's actually a pretty good hire in terms of reuniting what this squad's going to do, and certainly getting a tune out of Simmons and Embiid, and actually getting them to a level where everyone takes the focus off what they're doing. You know, because it's getting a bit like, Simmons doesn't shoot, like, Embiid's not fit, like, if you can get a tune out of these two, like, you're going 75% of the way to solving a lot of Philly's problems going forward.
Yeah, you've got to recapture that first season with some better defenders and some more matures. I mean, you think about that first season where Embiid and Simmons played together, and you're just like, well, you know, they got to a decent win, they got to the playoffs, and they got bundled out by, you know, a relatively good Boston team. But they were both young and immature. But if they had kept that core, you look at Rocco and Saric, you know, they've all signed decent contracts at other places. Like, these are players that are valuable in the league. And, you know, Redick, obviously, that was the team to take forward. What they were probably missing was just a closer. And I still think they are missing a closer. It'd be interesting to see how Doc closes out the games if they go to Embiid, because Embiid's overutilized in the fourth quarter and underperforms consistently in terms of shooting percentages. So I would want to see what he does in some dial-up situations in that fourth quarter with that pairing, because, you know, you've got a guy like Seth Curry, but, you know, do you rely on Seth Curry? Is it time for Seth Curry to take his game to the next level? You know, he's got I'm
not looking at that going, yeah, it's Seth Curry time. I feel like it's going to be Harris.
What? Yeah, I don't know.
And
my dog wants outside. Give me 1 sec.
Yeah. I'll keep going. You do that. I'll keep going. On the Harris thing, like, I feel like it could go either way. It could go, you know, Harris is the guy, and then you got to kind of endure half a season of, Tobias Harris is closing games and, you know, struggling, and this is not looking good. At the other sort of end of the spectrum, Tobias Harris could take his game to a next level. Like this is one of the things I was thinking about. Obviously, I'm monologuing to myself here, but they've kind of signed a bunch of guys who you would say no, they're not guys who are going to take their game to the next level, or they're not going to like step up a tier in how they're going to make this team better. But at the same time, I feel like they're good glue guys. Like Seth Curry's a good glue guy, good, decent defender, could shoot the ball, obviously, on offense. The big thing really is Harris, like how he's going to fit in this team. And at the same time, I'm not sure how they could have flipped him into anything different, really. A 6'8" guy who's not the greatest defender, but can score the ball in a few different ways. I'm wondering if they kind of use him as a perimeter shooter, or they use him as a go-to scorer at the end of games, maybe. I was just talking about Harris. I'm wondering if they make him into just a perimeter shooter, like Harris standing in the corner, like Harris at the 11 o'clock spot, and like get him off the ball a little bit less.
He's got to be off the ball.
I've got to get him off the ball a little bit more.
Yeah, you get him off the ball a little. I think in lineups where you're not utilizing Embiid, I think Harris can go to more that ball handling power forward, because I think Simmons needs someone else to help handle the ball in those situations. But when Embiid's on the floor, he should just be a shooter.
Embiid,
whether that's in the
or Harris.
When Embiid and when
Simmons
are on the floor, Harris goes to that shooting role. When Simmons obviously, Embiid plays 33 minutes a game. Simmons is playing 38 to 42. So obviously going to get in more lineups where Simmons is on and Embiid's off, and that's where you need to utilize Harris more in that drive and score kind of role. Whereas I think there's just too much going on with those two on the floor. They take up a lot of room and space, and they need a lot of room to work around the basket. And you could just see it last year. Everyone was just getting in everyone's way.
Yeah, it was too big. It was too much horizontal spacing as well.
Yeah, which was not good. But look, I like what they did with the place. It was a surprising off season. I definitely think the Morey thing happened to be because of the Rockets situation, where I think he probably got the nudge and went, "We can't afford you anymore, dude. It's time for you to move on. Do you want to go somewhere else?" And he went, "Yeah, there's this job in Philly. I'll probably take that." I just think that the Rockets franchise is just doo-doo.
Yeah, it's definitely taken a bit of a turn, and I'm hoping no Aussies end up on that team so that we have to watch that. But there is like a tie in there that there's a possibility that they might go after Harden, Philly, that is.
I think he's made it abundantly clear he wants to go to the Nets.
Yeah.
Even though that team would just be hilariously bad. I just haven't.
You don't like it?
It's no.
I think, man, depending on how Durant comes back, I could see that team being insane.
I think I see Durant coming, but it's a whole bunch of hogs.
Yeah, true.
Hogs, man.
It's all okay. It has entertainment value as well.
Entertainment value, but once they get to the defensive end of the season, Kyrie Irving's not really defensively great. I think a lot of teams are going to get past that. There's some teams that I think will make it interesting this season. In the Eastern Conference, I think Atlanta will make it interesting this season. And that's probably the main one that I feel will potentially push that top 8 prospect. Detroit, what the fuck are they doing?
What the hell did they do?
$25 million for a Plumlee.
Did Thon definitely opted out, right?
No, Thon, they didn't. No, they didn't renew his contract.
So they didn't. Yeah, they didn't. They took the offer off. Yeah, thank God for that. Thank you. I do not want to have to watch them again this season, man. Shit.
I feel sorry for Derrick Rose and Blake Griffin. Just like.
Ugh. But yeah, off topic. So we'll go back to the start of that Philly season. They had a few wins. They had a real like curse breaking win over the Celtics, and it was kind of like, ooh, like this team, nice. They've broken the curse, the Boston curse, and this team's going to be great. And I was kind of going back through some podcasts and old stuff from the start of the last season, and everyone was tipping the Sixers, man. They were always like, Sixers are going to win the East for sure. For that to happen, and then to go into where the season kind of went for them, I thought it was a bit interesting. It was a good start, and then they just were losing games in the middle of the season, where you're just losing too many games. They lost 4 in a row in December, and then another 4 in a row in January. late January, early February. The COVID stuff, kind of nobody in their team got COVID, I don't think.
Not that anyone knows of, but
Nah.
I think one of the things, I think the bubble was a blessing and a curse for Philly. Obviously, Simmons did his back, and that was probably the end of Philly in terms of wins for the rest of the season. So they kind of finished in a decent place. And then the curse of the bubble, obviously, is that I think that Embiid wasn't quite healthy. I think that the lack of probably playing time and training.
He had an injury actually, Embiid, before. I think that's 3 seasons in a row now. He's had an injury going into the playoffs.
Yeah. So it's kind of, and obviously Simmons injuring his knee, and that was the end of that. And, we all knew that they were going to get bundled out in the first round. It was,
Yeah, it was the way it happened was a bit of a shock.
Yeah, I don't know. I think 4-zip was a pretty relatable scoreline.
They just checked out.
Yeah, they just checked out. I think once Simmons went down, I was like, well, that's our season over. As much as I think Embiid is the process, I think it's Simmons' team, and it's just we've discussed this many a time. There isn't a center in the league, and you can even go back to Shaq. I mean, Shaq couldn't do it on his own. He needed Kobe. He needed Dwayne Wade. Like, there's just not a center in the league that's taken a team all the way. Probably the only, Dirk's not really a center, but kind of a 7-footer that's taken them all the way would be Dirk with the 2011 Mavs, who were definitely not expected to win that season. But that's pretty much it. And I just don't think. I think Embiid's the icing on the cake to this team as opposed to the center franchise piece. But it'd be interesting to see what this season holds for all the NBA and how it in and out and what happens and if there's fans and there's not like there's a huge roster of depth like the football that are like half the team gets COVID, just like call up the G League.
Yeah. I wonder how, because we had obviously today they all returned, and then I think it was an 8% amount of the players had COVID. It's just like,
well, I mean, Westbrook's had it. Like, there's a whole bunch of players that have had it. So I wonder if it's people that have had it or have it again, or like you just don't know what the go is, and
it just makes everything super uncertain of what's going to happen, especially fans in the arena. It's going to be a really interesting start to the season. What is it, 22nd it starts?
22nd, so we're 19 days away.
Yeah, we're only a few weeks away. Let's turn our attention to Simmons, the man, Big Ben Simmons. Another excellent season. I think excellent is a great way to describe it. First team all-defense award, and I think he made all-NBA third team as well.
Yep.
Just a defensive masterclass. Like, I think he could have been in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. We're obviously biased here, being Aussies and really wanting to support our Aussie players, but legitimately, I don't think he gets enough credit for just the advancements he's made in his defense in the last year. And I think if he comes back this season in any kind of form like that, it's hard to know what's going to happen after this knee injury, but any kind of form like that, he's going to have another great season.
He's going to have another great season. Is there an, we've seen him for a few seasons now. Is there an MVP season in there somewhere? I think there is. I think that his defense is good enough. I think he's genuinely one of the only players that could win Defensive Player of the Year and MVP. He's obviously got to develop a shot in some way, shape, or form. I think more as a respect factor than a weapon. I mean, everyone's got to be respected from the line to create more space for teammates and facilitation. But yeah, man, it's just good to watch. Like, I don't know what else to say about it. It's going to be a good season. I do like the fact I loved watching the first year with Saric, Rocco, kind of those guys, Redick. Like, it was just so much fun just watching threes get drained from everywhere because he's just such a gravitational force in transition offense. They just collapse on him, and then there's just 4 shooters around, and you just pick your poison. And it was extremely fun to watch. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that style of play. You know, I didn't like the way the Sixers played this season. It was frustrating to watch. Even when they won at home, it was still frustrating to watch everyone put the ball on the floor. When it's just like, no, just shoot. You know, even if you brick it, just shoot. Yeah, so that's what I'm interested in seeing how Doc Rivers plays, and some good pick and roll. That would be good. So Philly were 29th in pick and roll last season. And guess who was 30th?
Warriors. No, that wouldn't be. Houston. Oh, damn. That was such a gimme too. Damn it. I don't know why I was thinking Warriors.
0 pick and roll. There's no Capella.
Yeah, damn. I think obviously he was playing a lot of minutes, so he's 35 minutes per game, 35.4 minutes per game in the end, 16 points a game. Without shooting threes, I still think that's such an amazing feat for him to be up near 20 points a game, not shooting threes, because rhythmically in a game, you know, it's how you get, or new wave NBA, that's how you kind of rack up a lot of points is, you know, you go on a hot streak shooting threes. For him to you know, be putting up near 20 points a game, all layups and sort of dunks and, you know, getting to the rim, I think it's still an amazing feat. Plus having 8 rebounds a game and 8 assists a game. I think the shooting, you know, this is a season now where, like, the last 2 seasons, we're going into those seasons going like in a like a down type of attitude, going like, he's got to shoot, like, where's the shot, like, we need the shot. Whereas I feel like this year he's kind of like put the defensive part of his game together that's allowed everyone to just go, oh, defensively he's great, so we don't have to worry about him going into the season. Like, you obviously just look at him to be better, like as good defensively, and then he doesn't have to score the ball. Like, he doesn't have to shoot the ball. He can score the ball in the way he wants to score it. And if you can put up 20 points a game, and Embiid can put up 20 points a game, and they can find another scorer, they can get sort of, you know, 15 to 20 points a game. Like, I think they're going to be in the mix scoring 130, like putting up a lot of 130s, like, quickly on teams if they're going to play quickly. And I think he's going to be the key to that, because in transition he's so dangerous in the open floor too. And like he also, like you were saying, the misdirection part, it's not necessarily like in the half court offense, like in transition too, misdirectionally, he's just so good passing wise, and he can finish. He's so big, he can finish. And I think, you know, it's going to be important for Philly to put that together. And fitness wise, I hope Embiid has, like, touch wood, has a good season where he stays fit, because I think that's another piece of that puzzle that they need to solve as well.
Yeah, well, I think you also have to utilize him in a more effective way, and that definitely is not post to post. You should not be posting up any more than kind of 3 to 4 times a quarter. Like, it's not like your go-to offense. I think definitely pick and roll is one thing. It's one thing Jimmy Butler definitely brought to that team, was the idea of, you know, the pick and roll, and they did play that a lot when Jimmy was there, and it was successful. It's like, how you get buckets. Like, all right, we'll just go to the pick and roll. And teams find it very hard to defend the pick and roll on big guys, especially guys that can set big screens like Embiid and then Simmons rolling to the rim. I think that's a weird thing for a point guard to be able to do that. And I think it's a nice thing that Doc Rivers will have him back at point, because, like, the whole power forward thing was just disgusting. He's not a power forward. He's a point guard. Like, he's just, you know.
I think so too. I mean, I've heard many people I rate say that he's a power forward, and then I've heard many people I rate say that he's a point guard. So I don't know. To me, I'm like, just run him a point. Like, I don't care. I don't want him to play anything else but, like, have the ball in his hand and, you know, diming people up and orchestrating an offense. For me, obviously, I'm not a coach, but at the same time, like, that's what I want for me. That's what I want to see anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. You just don't want him to be a dunk spot specialist. You know, I think that his game has so much more depth than that. And there's no power forward in the league that you could compare him to. So therefore, he's not a power forward. Like, there's no other power forward that plays that. The modern power forward is kind of this weird mix of size, stretch, and, you know, get out of everyone's way kind of thing. Most power forwards don't put the ball on the floor. So it's kind of like, well, then what are we doing? The only example of that would be Draymond Green. And he's got a game that's kind of similar to Simmons in the sense of how he defends and how he facilitates. And the fact that you can't shoot either, but just not as athletically gifted and not as dangerous in transition offense. So, you know, that's really the only power forward in the league you can compare it to.
Yeah, and I think the ego part of it is the same too. Like, Ben Simmons doesn't have the ego that demands scoring rights, which just makes him way more versatile with the ball in his hand in transition. So I'm just looking at their roster. Let's just talk about some of the moves they made. Seth Curry, obviously, the first one for Josh Richardson, I believe it was. Yep. They probably lose a little bit in defense, but gain a shooter and a scorer. I think that's important. Probably getting away with it if Ben Simmons comes back and is defensively at the same level. You kind of don't need an extra perimeter defender, like as a defender.
Yeah,
like you could probably get away with having Curry, who's not the worst defender. I don't think he's a great defender, but I don't think he's terrible, and I think he's definitely serviceable. And Danny Green, they added as well. Solid. I think I'm more looking at that bubble performance and being wary rather than being like, no, he has pedigree. Like, it's okay. I'm kind of looking at that as a more of an old man type performance. But at the same time, if he can come into this team and just stand off ball and take shots, that's basically all you want him to do, and that's fine.
Defend, stand in the corner and take a shot when you're open. That's pretty much all he needs to do in this team. Like, there's nothing else he needs to do at all. It's hilarious.
No, if that's what he's going to do, then that's a perfect fit for him. I think he's found a nice little home there. Looking at Dwight Howard, it was out of nowhere.
That was a really weird pickup. I mean, look, his game's evolved. He's ready to take on that role of second fiddle. That's interesting. Like that he's just gone, okay, well, I think that the Montrezl Harrell thing really, I think that the Lakers are after Montrezl Harrell, which is to me beyond why.
Yeah, that was a bit weird.
He's just not that good a player. Anyway. Yeah. Very much overhyped. So you look, Fat Min, good pickup, 2.6 mil, traditional center. I think he showed last season that he can get into a team and just fit the offense, fit the team. He's no longer got an ego in the system. It's not about Dwight Howard anymore. It's just about winning championships, and he got to do that last season. And I think he obviously sees something in this Philly team that he wanted to be a part of. So that was a nice little pickup. I think, they've kept their core, like Korkmaz, Tybal, Milton. I mean, these guys are all on pretty cheap rookie deals. I think that's a nice little core. Korkmaz had a good season last year, I think. Had some game winners, evolved his game. Still a little bit stale defensively, but, can kind of pick that up and work in the second unit. And you kind of don't need like a second point guard. You've got Shake Milton there who can play backup point guard. So I do like that.
He's on the minimum too, so it doesn't really matter, what he gives you. Just looking at his contract here, basically, for 1.7 million, like it doesn't really matter if he can give you 9 points a game, 2 rebounds. That's not too bad. What about their draft?
Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
I don't know much about him, to be honest with you. He's like 23, I think. I'm not completely sure, but look, I think Matisse Thybulle didn't have much pedigree going into that draft, and look at what came out. You look at Landry Shamet; he didn't have much pedigree going into that draft. Look what came out. So they've kind of drafted really well in that 20 to 30 range in the last few years, and they've picked up some good players out of it. So maybe there is some method to their madness with this one.
So obviously, I'm just going to have a look at the draft to see if there was anyone around that, because there was some decent picks around the, between 20 and 30. RJ Hampton, maybe. Josh Green had already gone. That would have been interesting to have Josh Green on that team, another sort of 6'6", big defender type guard who could defend. There wasn't really anyone else around there that they could have picked up at all, really. Bomaro, maybe. But I think it'll be a decent pickup. Anyone who could defend, I think, on this team is going to be really important, especially like a guy like Tybal who could defend. You don't need to shoot the ball. All you need to do is defend and let the other guy shoot. I think they're going to be important because a Morey system is basically stripping out the two-wayness of guys. It's like, I put the ball on the floor, I get to the hoop, and I shoot. It's like, no. You do this thing here. And then these guys take care of that. You just do this one thing here. Well, it's not necessarily like that, but he tends to assign players who can, strip down and really be effective at what they do and effective to the team. So it'd be interesting to see how he goes. And then Brokoff would be interesting to see how he goes as well. And yeah, I think
they've signed Derek Walton Jr. and Justin Anderson to Exhibit 10 contracts.
Yeah.
So non-guaranteed, partial.
Anderson says on Sport Track that he's guaranteed. But I'm just going to check the trade machine. Justin Anderson contract is minimum, so it's guaranteed.
Okay. So it must be Derek Walton and Brokoff.
Yeah, it is, according to... where'd you go? Come back. Training camp is Daryl Walton Jr., Lamine Diane, Steak Diane. And yeah, Brokoff. And then Dakota Matthias and Paul Reed are the two-way players. Interesting. Yeah, definitely. I think they're going to be one to watch this season. I think there's going to be some expectations there.
Yep. But
I feel like they've got a much, much better chance of hitting those expectations this season than they kind of did last season. It was very like, we don't want to say it, but Brett Brown's looking a bit stale here, guys.
Yeah, it was kind of like, the process had evolved past him, and the glory days with that first year that Simmons came out, and when there was on the up and up, but they wasted that Fultz pick, and then they've wasted a couple other picks, big picks since then, and I think that this is the right direction for the franchise. So we'll see how this season begins.
All right, and then, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all of our season reviews. What are we going to do next? What do we got? A draft reaction or free agency wrap-up?
Free agency wrap-up, draft reactions, some card content coming your way, some few other bits and pieces, and some goofy shit as well we'll throw in there. So I think our next pod's going to be definitely on... Talking league and talking poor Mo Bamba, who probably will never play NBA again. Yeah, no, his COVID's just absolutely ruined his lungs.
Damn it.
So that's there goes Mo Bamba.
That's nuts. That's crazy.
So he might, Orlando and him might get a massive insurance payout, but yeah, he's the effects are still very, very bad and severe. So he's unable to partake in any physical activity 6 months later.
That's sad, man.
He becomes a long hauler.
So was he in the bubble?
No.
I feel like I saw him in the bubble. But probably not. Who knows? This whole bubble thing has just messed my entire understanding of time, my concept of time and what's happening.
What time is it? What is
what
now?
year? Like, what the hell? It's December and there's not even NBA yet? This is fucking weird. All right. So as always, you can like and subscribe on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, SoundCloud, YouTube. Follow our YouTube for more videos, card content, some zany shit coming over the next couple of weeks before Christmas, and Twitter and on Facebook too, like the Facebook page for more updates on content that's coming. And as always, we'll see you on